Now on BBC World News, Our World, Thailand's Red Rage. This programme contains images of violence and bloodshed, which some viewers may find disturbing.
Thailand's image as the land of smiles has been shattered by political violence. Dozens killed, hundreds injured, as a 2-month blockade of the city centre was ended by the army.
No matter what they call it, it was a massacre.
Symbols of wealth were torched as years of resentment over inequality burst onto Bangkok's streets.
Mass demonstration is not new in Thailand. From time to time, it also turned violence.
Society's deeply divided. But is this a class war, or more about an ex-prime minister desperate to regain power? How did it come to this? Northeastern Thailand. Isan, they call it. The poorest part of the country and a place where passions run high. Pratchop and his wife Tongsi wouldn't have joined a mass political movement but for a prime minister who won them over and encouraged them to demand more. His cheap loans and health care brought Pratchop treatment for his epilepsy and changed their lives.
Even though I'm just a poor woman, I'm fighting for Thaksin. My husband is sick, but he's still going to the rally. We want to try to bring back Thaksin.
She's talking about populist Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra. Elected twice from 2001, critics say he used the poor who supported him in his own battle with Thailand's establishment. A military coup in 2006 removed him, the root of the current crisis. Anger had been gathering momentum. A well-organised protest was heading to Bangkok. Tongsi and Pratchop were going with them.
I'm excited to be going to Bangkok. I'm fighting for democracy and to bring back my beloved Thaksin.
And so they headed south. In fact, Thaksin eroded democracy when in power, but his removal was unconstitutional. Tens of thousands joined the march.
Our limited goal was dissolution of the parliament, was not to overthrow the political system. And that was that, and I think we all have a right to do that. It was written within the Constitution.
Their tactic wasn't new. Mass protest in Thailand had been done before and had worked. Same scene, different colour. The yellow shirts marched against Thaksin Shinawatra. The coup followed, but they were back on the streets after his party again won elections. They were allowed to close Bangkok's international airports. The protest ended when judges banned the ruling Thaksin-aligned party. The majority who voted for him felt the establishment had conspired against them. And so, wearing red, they launched their first major protest in April last year. It was provocative and violent. But the force used to break up the riots came as a shock.
Well, suddenly the army started opening fire with live rounds. They were trying to shoot above, but some of those bullets were being fired into the crowds. It scarpered the red shirts who've gone down here, and the military are now following them. They're firing down this alleyway just down here as well, just in red shirts disappearing. It suddenly turned very, very nasty.
Many were injured, but few killed. The leaders called off the demonstration, vowing to consolidate and return. The government had stopped a volatile situation, but Thailand was getting a reputation for instability. Now, a year later, they kept that promise. Over 100,000 people demanding the Prime Minister resign questioning his legitimacy and demanding elections. They preached peace, but called on supporters to spill their own blood. Many made donations, collected to be poured on the gates of Government House. It was sold as a ritual, but made for dramatic pictures.
Well, the first of the bottles of blood have arrived here at Government House. We're not entirely sure as yet what they're going to do with them. It's a symbolic gesture, but it's one with the media very much in mind, and to try and keep the momentum of this protest going.
There was tension. Imagine a rabble of protesters being allowed to pour litres of their own blood on the gates of the White House. But they did.
We try to avoid confrontation between the demonstrators when they adopted a very unusual or non-peaceful ways of provoking the government.
It worked. They dispersed. It seemed the caution of a prime minister backed by the law had diffused a dangerous confrontation.
What we are trying to do is to make sure that the demonstrations continue in a constitutional and peaceful manner. We are in control and managing the situation.
He was waiting for them to run out of steam, but something had changed. Poorer people in Bangkok were cheering on the Reds' campaign against a system which had also kept them poor. A month-on peaceful protest was about to turn violent. The army was sent in amid growing frustration. There was an angry confrontation. Tear gas and rubber bullets were fired. There were gunshots. But darkness brought the worst of the violence. As troops with riot gear moved in, grenades were fired at the security forces. They fired back. It was chaos. The protesters clearly had armed supporters.
There
are terrorists among them, the Prime Minister told the nation. Negotiating a political settlement is the only solution. He did offer early elections, but red shirt leaders rejected the plan. The security forces had abandoned armoured cars and dozens of weapons as they fled. The botched attempt to stop the protest not only backfired, it encouraged them. 26 people died. More than 800 were injured in the violence.
The military say that 200 of their soldiers had to be treated in hospital, half of them with injuries associated with tear gas, which of course they fired, but at least 2 dozen suffered bullet wounds or were hit by shrapnel.
Those killed became martyrs, symbols of the struggle. Their coffins were paraded around the city and then laid out at Democracy Monument. Within a few days, central Bangkok had become the main focus. The demonstration had gone from a traffic annoyance to a siege of the capital's commercial heart. The government didn't want them there, but also didn't want a repeat of what happened on April the 10th, so the protest was allowed to continue and to strengthen.